I'm Sharmishtha Gupta. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of New York, which is where I studied and did my clinical years of licensure and training. And then I moved back to Singapore, which is my hometown. So that's where I am now. I work with a lot of third culture kids, people who are sort of straddling different cultures and figuring out their own personal identities. And so anxiety, depression, self-esteem really show up as some of the major themes for me. And it's really rewarding work. I still feel like I'm processing in terms of my own identity. Like I identify as a third culture kid. For me specifically, I was born in India, which is where my parents grew up. That's their home, that's their culture, that's like really easily their like ethnic racial identity. And then I grew up
Mhm.
in Singapore in an international school bubble. So I was never
Mm.
integrated into sort of Singaporean local culture. And so everyone I went to school with, we have some of those shared experiences of being either third culture kids or at least straddling a couple different cultures and figuring out where we fit. And I think especially in school
Mhm.
years, that's you're already doing that as a human to sort of just figure out
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah.
So when you talk about sort of the what you speak English so well, like I grew up in a school that was an English medium school in a country that was an English colony from a country that was an English colony. So English
Yeah.
is like my first language in every way. Even though my
Mhm.
parents tried to keep Hindi alive as my mother tongue. But when I
Mm.
went to college in California, that was, I would get that. I would be like, I'm from Singapore, and people would be like, oh, you speak English so well. And I would be really confused. I was like,
Yeah.
thanks. Like, I was just very confused
Yeah.
by it. It's like, you're being nice, you have a nice tone, but it's very
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, of course, college was um, a large part of really getting some more vocabulary and sort of frameworks to understand kind of
Mhm.
what a microaggression was, to sort of just take a little bit more effort to sort of define my identity and who I
Mhm.
am, right? So even saying I'm from Singapore, um, people in Singapore would I would say I'm from India, right? Like mostly that would be where I'm from when I'm here as a child.
Mm.
And now, fast forward like another decade, I have a pretty strong connection to the US. I spent 10 years there.
Yeah.
Um, it was sort of my entire adulthood until I moved back here. So really, really, my closest communities are there. Um, my accent is very American, which it always was a sort of international school accent even before the US, but I think it's become even more American since.
Yeah.
And so I get comments here. I had someone I've been going to do my like facials for me for like two plus years, and so she made a comment that like every time I speak, I sound like she's watching Netflix, which is like her way of saying American, right? Ultimately, I'm a brown woman. I'm South Asian. I live here in Singapore where I grew up. That's what I know. I think
Yeah.
in New York, especially, I experienced like less assumptions about where I was from or who, what, like what my identity was, than at least in SoCal liberal arts college, little
Yeah.
bubble
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
anyway, so long story short, I think
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still also figuring out kind of how to even um yeah, integrate, right, all of these different parts of
Mhm.
me that are influenced by different cultures and also just different stages of life. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, it's a lot, it's complicated.
It is.